All right, we are back. This is Politi-Talk Centered, our weekly podcast. We were just in discussion with former police officer Marty Katz. Had a really good discussion. RJ, thoughts?
I think he was really good to bring in for an interview to discuss, the police policies and everything because he was definitely informed on a lot of the information that we were seeking. And he brought a lot of his own personal views and even his own ethics into it, which was really good because, it was his standpoint, stand by the book, what is right is right. And it doesn't matter if you have like a mass of people who believe in wrong because wrong is still wrong. And I definitely highly respect that for sure.
Absolutely. Um, I really enjoyed the conversation. I don't think there was really any aspect of it that we disagreed on. Um, at all, which I kind of expected. The topics we were covering were kind of pretty much straightforward. There wasn't anything too outlandish, really.
Uh,
Um,
there's only like a few things that like I could have seen that was like I disagreed on, like the SWAT, like we talked about. Um, I can kind of see it from a standpoint, from where he's talking about, but like the response time up to an hour to an hour and a half, I feel like that's a little lacking in some situations because it could be anywhere.
and it is, and that's one thing that I've looked at in a lot of cases. A couple years back, there was a shooting. An officer had arrived on scene, and the suspect had fired upon them. I don't remember if the officer was hit or not, but the suspect basically fled, and it became a tri-county area high-speed pursuit. And eventually, the suspect was pitted in a intersection, and I was actually there. I was in the area when this happened, and it was about almost an hour for the SWAT team to respond. Now, I mean, they had the area locked down. There was cops from, three counties, state police, and everything else. So there was no shortage of control of the situation. But for SWAT to get there to proceed was probably close to 45 minutes to an hour. And there's the thing, there's you can only have so many people that are on standby at the station, where their collateral is SWAT, and they have the training and they have everything ready. And like, Marty was saying, the rest of the team, it could be their day off. They might be mowing the grass or out to dinner with family, and even if you respond instantly, you go home, put on your uniform, or have your uniform in your vehicle and head to the site. You don't have your full gear with you. I imagine. I'm sure there's some things that they would have to get either from a mobile command center or from the precinct. So there's a lot of moving cogs with that, and I understand why it's an issue. And one thing too is one way that cities and municipalities eliminate some of that time frame is once a situation um, begins to escalate to a higher scale. So once you can identify, like, you've already had to call 3 units in, massive backup to a situation, that would be grounds to have your standby SWAT team maybe geared up and ready at the station. And so that way, if it does escalate to the point where SWAT is needed, now you can cut down that time from maybe an hour to 30 minutes or less. I know in South Carolina, with the unit I work with, um, we did an active shooter drill, and we were heavily involved with the local sheriff department and working with them there, where they were basically testing their response time, their response tactics, and everything else. And it was a really great, thorough training. It was video recorded. We used blank sim rounds and stuff for the active shooter. It was very well done, and stuff like that, things like that, where the department is getting involved with the community, getting involved with the organizations around them, and participating in these type of live drills, are things I think help with that response time. They help in those situations. And it's ultimately up to the department heads and the chiefs of police and stuff to make sure that they are proactively doing that and engaging with their community, and letting the community know that they are there for them, and to help them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if they had to like increase like certain members in the community to be like SWAT, that would be even more of a better ideal in my opinion. Like instead of defunding, how about we fund a little more, like put a little more funding towards where officers, yeah, where officers don't have to pay for that training to sit in an 8-hour class to, be able to handle a SWAT situation or to handle a riot situation. With a little more funding, would bring a little more control to that situation. So you wouldn't have these, like we talked about a little last night and stuff, you wouldn't have those situations where, cops are, shooting, pregnant women in their cars with, pepper balls or something. Like, it would help prevent a lot, and then even, the response time for situations like, like you said, they only got 1 SWAT team, and it's only made of, like, 6 members probably at most, if not a little bit more. Um, it would knock that timing down too from, an hour to an hour and a half to hopefully, like, 30 minutes or, even 45 at most. So, I mean, there's a lot of viewpoints on that. And that was just one of the things that when he was discussing it, I didn't feel it could be better. I feel like it definitely could be a better response time.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too. Like, I mean, just human nature in general, we can always better ourselves, and it's very healthy. No matter what your occupation is, to have the mental attitude that I can do better. How can I do better? How can I push myself further? That is how you progress and not only in your occupation but in society and as an individual. To just push yourself forward is very important. Um, so on our offline topic for today, Chaz. Talking about Chaz, or what is it now? Chap, I think is the other name they're going by now.
The anonymous.
Because yeah, so so Chaz. So we touched briefly on that with him as far as the mayor forcing the police chief to abandon that precinct. Um, I don't like everything that we've seen with Chaz. Like, it's completely expected. I don't know if they expected anything else. But you have extortion and uh, people not allowed to enter their homes or even the area that their homes are in or businesses are in without showing ID. It's being they have their own border wall. They have armed guards throughout, and like my question in that aspect is, okay, so you got rid of the police because you think the police brutality is bad, and you replaced it with what that is better? Because all I see are people that are not held to any law,
Pure
you know,
chaos.
in your society, in the side, and obviously they're still held to American law. That is still American uh, ground. The Constitution still holds there, so they are breaking the law. But in their mindsets, these are their new police who are held to no legal or moral standard to do whatever it is they feel is right. I think it's a very dangerous place to be in, not only physically but just mentally. Um, and like with situations, it's like police. When a police officer deals with a hazardous situation, things can go from 0 to 60 instantly in a millisecond. What's to say that these people that don't have any training and have no regard for the law, get into an altercation or somebody tries to stand up for themselves and it doesn't turn into a bloodbath in a second. There's no accountability. Um, so the one question I have is okay. So this, I mean, I guess you could say this all started with George Floyd. I mean, really, this all kicked off with George Floyd. All right, and it's been progressing more and more since then. And my question is, when is this going to be enough? When is this going to be too far? When is either A, the crocodile going to be satisfied, or B, when are the people and those elected to govern us going to have enough of this and actually deal with it, actually do their job in protecting their citizens?
See, I feel like I agree with Mr. Katz. The complete removal of the police presence was by far a mistake. It's a situation where you stand your ground. It's a situation where you wouldn't let that. And like I said, there's a lot at play. You don't know if they just gave in because of everything that's happening. If they're just trying to meet like a demand or something. If they're just trying to please the public eye in some weird way. But I feel like it's already gone too far. You got people who in this little area are chaotic and it's completely shut down. And I've watched a lot of videos and they say that, they're not independent or anything. They're saying that, they are still part of the city and blah blah blah, but they just are not relying on the resources, but at the same time they are like, electricity, water, nothing's been cut off from them. Um it's chaotic, like I said, with the response time too, with fire department, EMS stuff, and not to mention that like if anything happens in that area where they're policing themselves, who's gonna
Yeah.
save them?
Well, who's holding anything accountable? If somebody gets murdered or raped
Right? Yeah,
or theft,
like there's nothing
who do you
holding
tell? How do you prove that, at that point?
Yeah, like, are you gonna go tell the one guy who has a gun and they could be best buddies? Now, guess what? You got an enemy. And the way I've watched videos on how they handle things, it's very chaotic. There is no agreement so far from what I've seen when it comes to when they do try to police things. There is no agreement. There is no structure at all between them all. It
And
ends up
and, and it just kind
like
of
a
ends
mob.
up like whoever has the big guns and the most power has the last say kind of deal.
So we're pretty much going back to like the Stone Age at that point in a way. Like, guess what? I got the bigger stick. I'm the fucking leader.
I posted a video not too long ago on my Facebook. It was before anything with Chaz happened, but it was after the riots were starting. Um, and I made the statement, you know, consider what it is you're asking for. Like truly think it through and consider it. Because in anarchy and chaos, there's only chaos. Law and order comes from chaos. You build law and order out of chaos. When you remove law and order, all that is left is chaos. And in that environment, only the strong prevail, and only those who are smart enough to outwit the others prevail. There is no equality. It is survival of the fittest. And I left the kind of um, uh, question of you just think about what you're asking for. Think about it, and if that's what you want, then that's what you believe in. And I might not agree that it's right or legal, but if you believe in something, then that's your belief system.
Oh, by far.
But don't follow something. Don't bandwagon along with the crowd before you truly think about and understand what it is you're asking for and doing, and what the repercussions of that are. The other thing too is I do, as bad as everything is right now with in regards to that with Chaz and stuff, I do feel like the movement is getting burned out. I do feel like people are getting bored, people are getting tired, um, and it's going to quickly turn against itself. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like that is kind of the next movement, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was not covered at all by the media.
yeah. Like I've seen it die out a lot on social media and stuff, and the people who strongly protested, that, this is a movement and everything. They've all been saying, "Hey, I'm taking a break from it and everything." It was basically like a Black Lives Matter Spirit Week.
Yeah, yeah. And an interesting thing too, I believe Brandon Tatham was talking about it, but basically, um, there's no foundation for what these people believe in or are fighting for. There's no actual foundation. All right. And when you have that, it's like, yeah, you can have a big, passionate moment up front. Whereas you're like, yeah, screw the cops. This is bad. Defund the police. Blah, blah, blah. Riot and loot because, that's how we get our message across. And it's like, well, what is your message? Like, honestly, what is your message? All right, the cops are bad. Okay, well, outside of even how are they bad, how are you going to make it better? How are you going to fix the problem? There's no foundation in these belief systems. So when it comes down to it, it's like you could just simply ask, why do you believe what you believe? That question alone will show how shallow it is because most people will not be able to defend that. They'll be like, oh, because there's racism, there's this and that. The police, are brutal, and it's like, well, that's a blanket phrase. You're applying that to a general abstract crowd. You're not actually applying it to a problem, and you're not giving a solution to the problem. And so that's why I feel like this is going to die out. It's already kind of dying out, but it's going to die out very soon.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. They I see that, you know, with it burning out, I feel like there are some parts that are not burning out. Like I feel like a lot of the activists have like, the ones who are actually like
The
100%
hard
about it.
hitters, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the ones like they're going to be the ones that are going to be, the hard to
They're
kill out.
yeah, and
And I'm
that
not saying like, Black Lives doesn't matter because I get it. It's exactly. I want to make this statement in this podcast. Like, so it's like I get the movement, I get the phrase Black Lives Matter. I'm not saying that all lives don't matter. They're saying that in particular these lives matter because they
that's the ones they
do.
care about. That's what's closest to home to them.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's like when you say, "Hey, let's go save the rainforest." You're not saying that all forests deserve the same respect or anything. It's just saying, hey, our attention and focus needs to be diverted to this just for the moment to try and save that one forest. But we're not saying that all forests don't matter. We're just saying, this forest needs our
Needs the most
attention
most
more.
care and attention in the moment. Yeah,
Yeah, so I get the movement. I support that movement, but a lot of the movement there are just, bandwagons. They're the ones that don't support the movement. They're the ones that don't fully understand it and they're just going with it. They're just going because of the anarchy. Like you got the Antifa members, the ones who are paid to create anarchy and use fascism and stuff to overthrow a government and those and then they're getting these younger kids involved and stuff, and this is where these issues are. Like these people, they don't know what they're fighting for. They think they know what they're fighting for, but they don't. And then it's the older, like you see the older members of the community, like with the Black Lives community and stuff. You know, they're telling the kids to go home. Like stop. Like this isn't the way. And and like we saw in previous videos and stuff, like they're hurting the Black community more than they
yeah,
are saving it.
yeah.
They're
And
backlashing it.
at the minimum, at the very minimum, like when you talk about the rioting and looting, all you're doing is anybody that may have been prejudiced or may have been even the slightly bit racist, because there are people that are, but you're reinforcing them. You're reinforcing that prejudice of that they hold on black people and people of color and stuff, that that they're just these people that do all these crimes and stuff. That's not all black people. I know plenty of black people that are, they're excellent members of the community. They don't go out and they're not gangbangers, they're not gang members, they're not drug dealers and stuff. They're just decent. They're like anybody else that is a law-abiding citizen that just wants a decent life. I know plenty of those people. And at the same time, on the flip side, like on the criminal side, there are white people, there are Hispanic people, there are American like white people, Chinese people. There are, there's race and color has nothing to do with it. It's a individual mindset, and it's an individual standpoint that makes us good or bad. And that's like the big argument I've always had, like when you say like, white privilege and all this other stuff. It's like when you say things like that, you're promoting racism, you're enforcing racism, and you're fueling it. It's like if you want to get rid of racism in America, stop creating it. But with also with Chaz, so if the movement keeps going on, which it seems that it's pretty um, centered there, a lot of the more extreme members of the movement, um, federal intervention. I know we've heard President Trump kind of talk on intervening if if the mayors and governors fail to protect their citizens, that the federal government and military will step in and do it for them. What's your kind of thoughts on that and whatnot
With the way Chaz is, I think they should have already stepped in.
on the state level?
Yeah, like on a state level, I mean, I definitely think they should. Like, it's happened once before back in like back in the Vietnam.
Yeah, they had the LA riots and stuff and a bunch of other things.
And they did, I believe, that the president and them, they do have the right, because there's only so much that a state level can do. Once when the state level has failed in a certain situation, for I'm just going to use Chaz as an example. You let an entire city block area get taken over completely. That's basically claiming, like, not like low key, not claiming, but claiming at the same time that they're independent, and that they're making their own society basically, and that they can do better. And at that point, I feel like the federal government would step in. Like, you have a situation that isn't being addressed. It's not being, it's being left alone to its own
Yeah.
devices.
And honestly, like on a very extreme spectrum of it, it's like if all that happened was the police were forced to leave the area and people like they made their own little, you know, uh, exclusive country zone and people were able and everybody there was on board with it and everybody there was happy with it. um, I would have less issue with that, and I would say maybe the federal government doesn't need to get involved with that because everybody's on board with it. But the fact of the matter is that people are being extorted. Shop owners are being forced at practically gunpoint to pay for protection and stuff. People are not allowed in their homes without somebody else's permission. These are grievous infractions on civil liberty rights and the Constitution. And at that point, it's like it's not a matter of you know uh, politics, public opinion, or whatever else. The state has failed to protect its citizens' constitutional rights. And when the state fails, it goes up the tree. And what's above that is the federal government and the federal level. And, you know, I think, just as much as I strongly believe in the First Amendment and people's ability to protest and speak their mind, even like from one end with Black Lives Matter and the other end with like neo Nazis and stuff, as long as they are not infringing on other people's constitutional rights, they are not breaking the law. You can say whatever you want. That is the benefit of being an American citizen in this country, is that you have the freedom to speech and to express yourself and to criticize your government. That is your right. But when you overstep your right and you screw over somebody else's rights, you are no longer operating in the pretense of the Constitution. And so either you have to cease and desist of your own volition, or you must be forced. Because I will not stand for people infringing on other people's rights. If someone is infringing your rights, as a person of color or whatever else, I will absolutely stand by with you and help you, protect you, and fight for you because that is constitutionally your right. But if you infract upon somebody else's rights, I can no longer defend you. I can no longer help you because I will not help a criminal.
I mean, even in the worst case scenario, like right now with Chaz, you don't even have like the National Guard called in to surround the area or anything to kind of like minimize it. Nothing's been done. So that's where I feel
It's
like,
been left to fester on its own.
and that's where I feel like the federal government should come in at a point like that because the state has failed in a way to not mobilize anything at all against this, and they've just left it to its own device, like you said, to fester, to become more of its own problem.
And like and the I think it was the mayor used the term, summer of love. It's like absolutely, if they want to block off that whole city block area and have a little uh, tarmac top gardening and all that stuff, fine. If the governor is cool with that, that's fine. But not at the expense of other people's rights and liberties. Not at their expense. Um, so media coverage and portrayal. Not really a whole lot I have to say here. I do feel like each side has their own narrative. I've read a lot of CNN articles and stuff on different things, and I can see the bias there. And then same with Fox News. The only thing I have to applaud Fox News is that they've actually been releasing full clips, unedited, and presenting things up front. But obviously, there's the right sided bias there as well, which is to be expected. So, a healthy dose of both gives you an understanding of what's in the middle, I guess you could say.
For sure.
But yeah, anything you want to say in conclusion to that on Chaz and stuff?
I mean, I've said pretty much what I want to say on it. Like I do feel like, with Chaz, the state itself has failed. The mayor obviously has definitely failed in that aspect. Like, they're just allowing it. But above that, the governor side of things is, you definitely let that failed because, your next step of reaction to someone who's armed and controlling a city block, you should definitely have something there, like a police barricade, um, National Guard, something to kind
Something.
of like,
At least showing that law and order is still there.
yeah, like the prevent it from spreading as well. Because who's to say, every day they're not like moving those barricades further and further out, There's no coverage on it, there's no nothing. There's just the hey, this is how it's on the inside. And, on the inside they say, hey, we're all about this and this, but in reality, like there's been other situations where, it's just chaos in there
And a
because
lot
no
of a lot of
one's
people
security.
that have tried to record and do videos of Chaz have been attacked and assaulted, and their phones taken from them. Um, so I mean, definitely not constitutionally sustainable at all. So for those listening on YouTube, our discussion ends here now. We continue on into our little bonus feature called Off the Rails, where we just kind of talk about whatever, which is only available to our Discord members. So check out the link in the description, join the Discord, and listen to the live podcast and catch all the extra bonus features there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having the conversation, and we can't wait to see you next time.